Welcome to the Morning Edition Extra. I'm Adelmi Ruiz, coming to you from Alaska's News Source's digital desk. Thank you so much for starting off your Friday with us here at Alaska's News Source. Starting us off, we have meteorologist Aaron Morrison, who's going to give us a rundown over what our days are going to look like weather-wise as we head into our weekend. Aaron.
We are chasing some of those warmer conditions as we officially welcome in spring, which began at 6:46 this morning. And our temperatures, well, they're going to begin to trend upwards as we welcome in the weekend and next week. We're also still chasing the snowiest season on record for Juneau, which is currently sitting at the third snowiest. And then as you head into the interior, teens for highs this weekend with an outside chance that late next week we could see temperatures pushing near 20 degrees. We are waking up this morning 15 below in Fairbanks, 24 below in Nome, 23 below in Utqiagvik, as well as out towards Dead Horse, where we're still holding on to bitter cold conditions and those wind chills near Dead Horse feeling more like 70 below this morning. That is where we continue to hold on to some ground blizzard conditions as you head along and east of the Dalton Highway. Temperatures are 8 degrees warmer in Wasilla, 3 degrees warmer in McGrath, 15 degrees warmer in Fairbanks. So many areas of the state beginning to see those temperatures steadily warming. With that said, we are still holding on to some colder conditions. A persistent northerly flow. We've got that ridge out over the Bering and western parts of the Aleutians. And on the eastern side of that ridge, we've got that northerly flow, and that continues to reinforce those cold conditions. And as a result, we've still got cold weather advisories through the Kuskokwim Delta. And then we've got those we've got those temperatures out towards the Aleutians, likely staying in the teens and if not single digits for parts of the Aleutians as we head throughout the day. So cold weather is still with us across the state, but temperatures are beginning to warm. And it has been a cold start to a year for Fairbanks. We're currently coming in at 11.9 degrees below zero for the average temperature so far this year, which is the 11th coldest start to a year and the coldest since 1974 when we saw an average temperature of negative 13.9 degrees. So what we're going to be watching here over the next couple of days, we are going to see our upper level low that has been with us. It kind of breaks off from that main energy that's in northern Canada. And as a result of that, we are going to begin to see temperatures moderate across the state. We're also going to see this ridge that's out west beginning to kind of shift more towards the northeast. And that is going to allow for some warmer conditions to begin to build back in across the state. One thing we are going to be watching, though, is persistent snow showers that stay with the Gulf of Alaska. Most of South Central stays dry outside of coastal areas, and then you can see widespread snow continues to sweep through southeast. We're going to be watching some gusty winds, which will arrive into the Panhandle as we welcome in Saturday. Also, some high winds look possible for South Central as we welcome in the weekend, with gusts up to 75 miles per hour for parts of the lower Matanuska Valley. That does arrive as we welcome in your Saturday. For today, though, temperatures in the 20s. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds. Snow still expected through Prince William Sound, eastern parts of the Kenai. Elsewhere, we will stay on the dry side, and those temperatures, they're going to stay in the 20s, possibly even some 30s as we welcome in the last full week of March. You can see those temperatures staying in the upper 20s, while overnight lows in Delmy stay near 10 degrees.
All right, thank you, Aaron. And in minutes, everything they owned became smoke, water, and ash. More than a dozen people are starting over without a home to return to. Lauren Maxwell has more on a daring escape and what is being done to help the families displaced after a fire in Anchorage's Mountain View neighborhood.
Smoke from the blaze reached high into the sky Wednesday afternoon.
Crazy.
Excelia Hendrickson saw it. She just picked up her son from elementary school and was a few blocks away.
And I thought it was coming from down the alley, but then I actually looked and I saw all the black smoke in the sky, and I just screamed, "Can you keep my son, please?" And I darted.
The smoke was coming from the apartment building on North Lane Street where Excelia lives with her mother. She worried her mom had just gone down for a nap.
She said she was gonna lay down and she started smelling something, and then the alarms started going off.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's when I panicked.
Excelia arrived just in time to see her mom leap from a second-story window.
I was kind of afraid to jump, but I'm glad there was snow, a lot of snow, and I just landed on here. Thank God.
The family was among 4 people and a dog who spent Wednesday night at a Red Cross shelter set up at the Fairview Rec Center.
The shelter will stay open until all of those clients have found what their new normal is going to be.
Excelia and her mom aren't sure what that will look like.
Just thank God that everybody got out safely.
I know, really.
I'm so glad.
They're hoping to get settled soon. Lauren Maxwell, Alaska's news source.
The Anchorage Fire Department says 2 people were taken to the hospital to be checked for smoke inhalation. The cause of the fire, which damaged all 7 units in the building, is still under investigation. And we're going to shift to a very tough topic, suicide, one that many people find a bit difficult. Young people from Western Alaska brought their grief and their demands straight to the Capitol, pressing lawmakers to act on a crisis that's claiming lives here at a staggering rate. Political reporter Will Courtney shows us what they're asking for and why they say it can't wait.
I've traveled hundreds of miles to be here today because I want to be a voice for those I have lost to suicide.
On the steps of the Capitol, calls for change.
Alaska is facing one of the most severe mental health crises in our country. 1 life is lost to suicide every 2 days.
But amongst the speakers, one missing. A voice from a village hit hardest by Typhoon Halong.
He was supposed to be here sitting on this very couch in this very room, going around the Capitol speaking to other legislators. Unfortunately, isn't here and took his own life.
He was looking forward to come to talk to the legislators about youth suicide. A few weeks prior to that, he had a relative that had died by suicide, and then the typhoon hit. I got to know him playing as an elf. I play Santa Claus for the school district in the Bethel schools. I always try to get the kids to play elves, and he was one of the elves, and the smile he had on the face and interaction was great.
According to the CDC, Alaska has the highest suicide rate across the country. It's the 5th leading cause of death in the state. One proposed solution: pass a bill to fund mental health crisis services and the 988 Lifeline. If passed, a 98-cent surcharge would be added to all local telephone numbers. Advocates say it's been a tricky sell.
We've had some successful meetings with different legislators. There's definitely an acknowledgement of the need, but it's difficult to pass bills that involve a surcharge.
But behind the policy debate are people.
I want to be one of the voices for people who feel like they don't have a voice. 988 saves lives. Thank you.
Will Courtney, Alaska's news source.
The bill to help fund 988 is scheduled for a hearing in a Senate committee today. If you or someone you know is in crisis, you can call or text 988 anytime. The Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available 24/7. And a reminder, the deadline to apply for your Alaska Permanent Fund dividend is coming up fast. The filing window closes March 31st. If you haven't applied yet, you can log into your My Alaska account and fill out the application. Every eligible person in your household needs their own, including kids. If you don't want to e-sign, you can still file online and mail in a signature or pick up a paper application at distribution centers around the state. You can find a link on our website. UA President Pat Pitney gave her last State of the University address, emphasizing the positive shift she says has occurred over the last 6 years. Pitney spoke to the challenges that faced the university system when she took her position in 2020. That included a budget crisis, the COVID pandemic, and ongoing enrollment declines. She says the university system has now stabilized and is seeing growth in enrollment, as well as research advancements. Pitney says that includes the possibility of being one of 4 institutions to receive a National Science Foundation grant focused on critical minerals development.
Is our continued enrollment
An affidavit filed in Alaska District Court says an Anchorage man tried robbing a bank, warning a teller He was armed with the power and authority of Jesus Christ. It happened at a credit union 100 Bar Road in Anchorage last month. The affidavit says the warning was written on a note. The teller handed the suspect money. 35-year-old Deshalon Jelks was later found and arrested by police across the street at a Costco. The affidavit reports Jelks asked if he could get any of the stolen money back, in which he did not. Three weeks into the massive school bus strike, there's still no agreement. Teamsters Local 959 says negotiations with Durham School Services ended without an agreement. The union says Durham declined to extend talks with this week and instead left town. Teamsters says the strike will continue with one virtual bargaining session now set for March 26th. And with that, we're going to take a very short break. When we return, we'll hit some of those national stories, including we'll have your recap over what happened this week in the government. And so we'll have those stories and more when we return. Welcome back in, and thank you so much for sticking with us for the Morning Edition Extra this Friday morning. Now we have our very own John Thompson, who's speaking with our Washington correspondent Emma Wolfers on what has been happening in Washington. What can we look ahead to? What is happening today, and what has happened this past week?
Well, as the war in Iran continues, the Pentagon now requesting an additional $200 billion in federal funding. Alaska's news source Washington correspondent Emma Wolfhorst joining us now from D.C. Emma, what is the administration asking for, and how are lawmakers responding to this request?
Well, John, in a briefing Thursday morning, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed military officials plan to ask Congress for that $200 billion in additional funding. Hegseth said, quote, "It takes money to kill bad guys," end quote. This request, though, is expected to face pushback. Americans are already feeling the economic impact of the war at the gas pump, and Democrats have already expressed concerns. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said Thursday, quote, "It's our responsibility right now to end this reckless war of choice," end quote. A recent estimate from the Center for Strategic and International Studies put the cost of the first 12 days of this war at $16.5 billion. President Trump did say Thursday his administration is asking for this funding for other reasons beyond just Iran. He said the emergency spending would be a very small price to pay to ensure the nation's military stays in top shape. The big question, though, is there actually enough support for this to pass? Any Pentagon funding requests require at least 60 votes in the Senate to pass, and right now it looks fairly unlikely that that would actually be a possibility.
All right, got to talk attacks on energy facilities expanding in the Middle East. Israel targeted the largest gas field in the world. Iran struck energy sites in several countries around the Persian Gulf. Emma, what more can you tell us about these attacks, and what does President Trump have to say?
John, these strikes sent fuel prices soaring yet again. Global oil supplies already under pressure because of Iran's disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, where a fifth of the world's oil is transported. Brent crude, the international standard, briefly topped $119 a barrel Thursday. These escalating attacks have also increased the risk of possibly an extended period of higher prices, not just for gas and electricity, but also for things like computer chips and food, because more products than just oil pass through the strait in the Persian Gulf. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said late Thursday, per President Trump's request, Israel would hold off on any further attacks on the Iran South Pars natural gas field. Now, President Trump did warn on social media if Iran continued striking Qatar's energy infrastructure, the U.S. would retaliate and, quote, massively blow up the entirety, end quote, of the field.
And finally, Emma, lawmakers advanced Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullins' nomination as the next Homeland Security chief today. What happens now? What's next?
Now John Mullen will have to go before the full Senate. Despite that sort of tense confirmation hearing Wednesday, Senator Mullen's DHS Secretary nomination was swiftly advanced out of committee Thursday. The panel met for just 3 minutes before taking a vote 8-7 to advance. Committee Chair Senator Rand Paul was the only Republican who voted against Mullen. On the other side, Senator John Fetterman, Democrat from Pennsylvania, crossed party lines to support Mullen. Now, full Senate vote has not been scheduled yet. We do expect it may take place next week. President Trump previously said former DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, who he announced was out last week, would officially step down from the role March 31st. So the administration wants to get Mullen's confirmation going and finalized as quickly as possible.
Alaska's news source, Washington correspondent Emma Wolforce joining us from D.C. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
The federal government hopes land it owns could be its own cash cow. It's looking at expanding a program that leases land at steep discount prices to ranchers for their cattle, sheep, and other livestock to graze. But research by our partners at ProPublica and High Country News found that wealthy corporations are cashing in on the program too. Investigative reporter Morgan Lau shows us how the program, vital for everyday ranchers, has some others jumping in.
Ben Mangus is a fifth-generation cattle rancher. To him, tacking up a horse is like dressing for work.
A lot of the things that we do, people were doing it the same way 100 years ago.
Despite the picturesque image of the cowboy in the American West, this is not an easy way to make a living. It's physically demanding, and profitability depends as much on the weather as it does on the price of feed and beef and the value of government subsidies.
Yeah, the economic challenges is very real.
The Mangus Ranch is located in far eastern Arizona, and it spans 83,000 acres. Mangus and other family ranchers view themselves as stewards of this land.
We not only produce beef, but we're caring for the landscape. We provide all the water for the wildlife on the 83,000 acres that we ranch.
The Mangus family does not own the vast majority of the ranch. They lease it from Uncle Sam.
We have a small piece of private land, but most of it is a federal grazing lease.
In Arizona especially, ranchers could not survive without using land like this. It's U.S. government land, BLM or Forest Service land, and there's a real battle brewing over who should be allowed to use it. Public enemy number one, according to Ben Mangus, are what he calls radical environmentalists who don't believe this desert land is compatible with cattle ranching.
Are you a radical environmentalist?
I don't consider myself radical at all. I stand for Mother Nature. I think
Chris Bugby is the Southwest Conservation Advocate for the Center for Biological Diversity. He's guiding us down a trail through the Agua Fria National Monument.
we're actually standing in the rarest ecosystem in North America, the cottonwood willow forest, and we've already lost 95 to 99% of it is already gone.
And Bugby says this forest is not well.
This should be a lush forest with a thick understory of vegetation. And what we're seeing here are none of those components.
What's missing here?
What's missing here are all the little cottonwoods.
There's no baby trees.
There's no baby trees. There should be hundreds.
What's happening to the young trees?
Those trees are being devoured by cattle every year. Yeah, this is heartbreaking.
Bugby says cattle come through and eat all of the underbrush and saplings and leave nothing behind. According to him, there's only one solution.
We need to eliminate cattle from these important places, and we need a drastic reduction in herd sizes across the region.
But that is not what's happening across the West today. The Trump administration is moving to open up more public land to grazing as a way to maximize productivity and help address the nation's debt.
That's revenue to the federal government. That's revenue that helps balance the budget.
But a joint investigation with our national investigative team, ProPublica, and High Country News found the federal government is charging just a fraction of what it could for the land. And the people benefiting most from the system that opens federal land to cattle grazing are often billionaires and giant corporations that can use their ranching operations for economic gain unrelated to beef production, like tax deductions and environmental restoration credits. Freeport-McMoRan and Resolution Copper have both leased grazing land near their mines in Arizona. Our analysis shows Freeport paid about 75% less than the land would cost on the private market, while Resolution paid about 90% less. The J.R. Simplot Company is the largest rancher on BLM land. The Idaho business got its start selling potatoes to McDonald's. It's now a multinational company. Our analysis of federal records showed it paid about $2.4 million below the market rate to graze on federal lands in 2024. Stan Kroenke owns sports franchises like the Los Angeles Rams, Denver Nuggets, and England's Arsenal FC. He also benefits from the program with land leased in southeastern Arizona and other states.
Benefiting the large guys.
Sylvia Secchi is an economist at the University of Iowa who focuses on the environmental impacts of the modern agriculture business. And she says the big guys are getting a steal. Meantime, small family ranches are disappearing because they can't compete.
The policy is not targeted, right, to the small ranchers. And so they themselves have more challenges in making a living.
Back on the ranch, Ben Mangus is hesitant to criticize corporate operations.
But I think that There's nothing that compares to the family rancher wanting to pass that ranch on to the next generation when it comes to caring for the landscape.
He is fighting for the survival of a way of life. According to USDA figures, more than 1,000 Arizona cattle ranches have disappeared over the past 10 years. Mangus says the ability to use federal lands is still helping his family's ranch from joining that statistic, even as corporations can also cash in on the same program.
I'm a little biased, but I think there's no better use of the public's land than to feed the public.
And with that, we're going to take another very short break. When we return, we'll talk about Apple iPhone warnings, about breast cancer vaccines. We'll talk about a promising heart attack drug. And we'll have some more health stories when we return from this very short break. Stick with us. Welcome back into the Morning Edition Extra. Thank you for joining me this morning. There's a promising new medication to help save heart attack patients when every minute counts. Jen Pisciano has those details.
When a patient is suffering a heart attack, acting fast can mean the difference between life and death.
50% of patients will die before they get to the hospital. We have no treatment.
But UH's Harrington Discovery Institute is backing a new drug called Zalinfiban that in the clinical trial helped thousands of patients suffering from heart attacks avoid complications and other serious risks. Dr. Barry Collar is the primary inventor of Zalinfiban, an investigative antiplatelet drug designed to reduce clot formation the patients experience during a heart attack.
The best time to get the medication is as soon as possible after the onset of the symptoms of a heart attack. And in our situation, we want to also have confirmation that the patient is really having a heart attack by their electrocardiogram, showing very characteristic changes that they are in fact having a heart attack.
Dr. Collar says it can help open the arteries and substantially reduce the risk of death, a larger heart attack, or a stroke. Through the first 3 phases of the clinical trial of this heart attack, patients have been given it primarily by paramedics in ambulances or in the ER when the patient first arrives. But the end goal is to make it possible for patients or caregivers to potentially give the drug to the patient even quicker, self-administering at home through auto-injectors like EpiPens. Zalinfiban is given to patients subcutaneously or under the skin, something Dr. Collar said was done at the advice of Harrington Discovery Institute. Dr. Jonathan Stamler is the co-founder.
When you have a heart attack, you have poor blood flow, and so oral pills don't work very well. So the idea was to give him a form of a drug that could be administered effectively in that very narrow window of time before a patient will often die, and the hearts can't be saved. And this was tremendously effective.
The medication also wears off within about 2 hours.
We're hoping that that will minimize the amount of bleeding and even allow patients to go for surgery if they need to, only a couple of hours after the drug has been administered.
On average, it takes 10 to 15 years in the U.S. and at least $314 million to develop a successful drug. Dr. Stamler says the Harrington Discovery Institute was created to overcome challenges in funding during the early stages of drug development, bridging the gap and helping make a commercially viable therapy.
We embed within their lab a team of drug developers for 2 to 3 years and experts who can build the business case.
The next step is to submit the study results to the FDA for approval and to develop an auto-injector. Dr. Stamler says he can taste the finish line, and the possibility of impact is scalable, enormous, and enormously exciting. Jen Pachano, 19 News.
Now, imagine if we could prevent breast cancer before it happens. Right now, a vaccine is being tested in clinical trials. Kara Beal spoke with a patient from North Carolina who says it's working for her. Oh, excuse me.
So my dog's name is Kato. He's a rescue, half lab, half golden retriever.
Chase Johnson believes she is alive today thanks to this furry friend who knew something wasn't quite right 5 years ago.
He was kind of looking at me and whining, which is just completely out of character for him. One day he just took his nose and kind of like pushed it into the side of my breast, sat down, looked at me straight in the eyes and just whined. And when he did that, it hurt. And I was like, ow.
That is how she discovered a lump on her breast.
I was diagnosed at 31 with triple negative breast cancer, which is one of the most aggressive forms of breast cancer that you can get.
It's considered triple negative because it lacks 3 main proteins: progesterone, estrogen, and growth factor HER2.
I went through the traditional route of treatment. I did IV chemo, I did surgery, and then I did radiation.
Chase reached a huge milestone after treatment. She had no evidence of cancer, but she still had a growing fear. According to the National Breast Cancer Foundation, her type of cancer has a recurrence rate of 75%. It's why it's so deadly.
Like as a cancer survivor, you go through treatment and people, I think, once you finish your last day of active treatment, everything's over. And for survivors, it very much is not. Like every pain that you have, you're like, oh, what is this? Like, do I need to go get scanned again? And it's just this constant kind of in the back of your mind lurking of like, it could come back, it could spread.
Chase found out about a breast cancer vaccine and signed up right away. She flew from North Carolina to Ohio to be in the first phase of clinical trials at the Cleveland Clinic.
I got 2 shots in my inner thighs and then 1 on the right side of my stomach, like a few inches from my belly button.
She had 3 shots over 6 weeks. She said it felt similar to any other vaccine. She experienced a little soreness at the injection site and a mild fever.
I think that was routine as well. Like you expect to have some sort of response. I think it was viewed as a good sign that your body's reacting to it.
Dr. Amit Kumar is the CEO of Anixa Biosciences, the company which is developing the vaccine alongside the Cleveland Clinic. He explains how the treatment works.
All women produce a protein called alpha-lactalbumin. It's a protein that's a lactation protein. It enables a woman to lactate when she gives birth, so she can feed her infant. When she stops breastfeeding, the protein disappears again. The body understands that we don't need it anymore, so it disappears again. But we know that it appears again when cancer cells appear. We don't know exactly why, but the cancer cells are producing that protein again.
The vaccine trains the body to kill this protein, but since it's used for lactation, researchers say women won't be able to breastfeed after receiving it.
It doesn't impact your fertility, it impacts your body to produce milk, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Chase says it's been 2 years since her injections and 5 years since her cancer.
So Chase, you've kind of gotten to that milestone?
So technically July 2nd of this year will be the 5-year milestone.
What do you think of that?
I am holding my breath and keeping my fingers crossed. So yeah, it's huge.
She says Cato is calm now, and she has a good feeling about what this means.
He told me I had it the first time, and so it's reassuring before every scan. I look at him and I'm like, okay, he's not anxious. We're good.
Researchers say they hope to start phase 2 of the clinical trial in the next year. This would expand the trials to 18 sites across the country, and they say it's not only for triple-negative breast cancer. They are expanding the clinical trials for women with high-risk genetic mutations, so those who have the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes. And Apple is warning iPhone users to be sure to update their software in order to combat hacking campaigns. Researchers have identified 2 entities from Russia and China are developing hacking programs called Dark Sword and Corona that can infiltrate iPhones and collect data on its users. Both programs can reportedly give hackers deep remote access to victims' phones and let them search through their contents. However, Apple's latest software update, which was released in September, can thwart those cyber attacks. In fact, according to an Apple spokesperson, those programs are only affected on devices still using older software versions, and that staying current on system updates are the best way to stop the attacks. And if you're wondering, Apple's latest operating system is iOS 26. Last week, Apple also made the unusual move of releasing a special update for iPhone users with older models that cannot handle fully upgrading to iOS 26, specifically to block hackers from using the hacking tools. And American adults are spending more time than ever looking at screens, possibly putting their brain health at risk. A Pew Research Center survey finds more than 80% of American adults go online at least 7 times a day. More than 40% report they go online almost constantly. Psychiatrists say that's leading to so-called digital dementia, or brain rot, resulting in shortened attention spans, memory problems, fatigue, and mood changes. But there are ways to avoid some of the damage.
You have to have awareness that on some level this is impairing my connections. If it is, ask yourself, are there things that I can do on my phone? Put it on grayscale so it doesn't look as colorful and as addictive and exciting. The other thing is, if I'm checking the weather, am I checking the news? Can I use a newspaper instead?
Psychiatrists note there are some brain benefits to older adults using technology, with some research indicating it helps reduce dementia. Experts still recommend reducing screen time and exercising your brain by doing word puzzles or playing Scrabble. And the World Happiness Report is out and finds American young people aren't smiling quite as much as they used to. Researchers say social media may be to blame. Tina Kraus looks at what we might learn from the happiest nations on Earth.
The serenity seems unshakable in Finland, a country that's cracked the code on contentment for the 9th year in a row, ranking as the happiest place on Earth.
We find very high levels of social support where people have friends to rely on in case of trouble. They trust each other, they trust the institutions that surround them, and that's invaluable.
The 2026 World Happiness Report finds those connections are being lost in other countries to endless hours of scrolling on social media. Researchers say life satisfaction among American teens, especially girls, has dropped sharply over the past decade.
The message coming through loud and clear is that we should try and put the social back into social media.
The U.S. ranks 23rd on the global happiness list, a notch higher than last year. The UK comes in 29th. The Scandinavian and Nordic countries consistently come out ahead, all making the top 6 this year. And some Americans think they know why.
I noticed a long time ago that there was something special with the kids and the parenting.
American author Jessica Joelle Alexander moved to the world's 3rd happiest nation, Denmark, 10 years ago.
The most important thing for a child here is to play.
Researchers say that freedom to explore supports strong social bonds, which are linked to higher life satisfaction and could help countries climb the happiness rankings. Tina Kraus, CBS News, London.
And with that, we're going to take another very short break. When we return, we'll talk about spring cleaning and your finances, because spring is right around the corner, literally right around the corner. So we'll talk about spring cleaning and your finances, and we'll have those stories and more when we return. Welcome back in. Spring officially starts this weekend, and along with cleaning out closets and garages, it's a good time to organize all that paperwork and those old bank emails. You don't need to file away everything. Jill Schlesinger breaks down what to keep and what to toss.
Spring is in the air, and to celebrate, fire up the shredder and get ready to press delete, because it's time to clean out your financial files. Let's start with tax returns. The IRS can look back 3 years in an audit, and if they identify a substantial error, they can add another 3 years. So hold on to your returns and all supporting documents for 6 years just to be safe. If you work with a tax preparer, ask whether they keep electronic copies of your filed returns. Everything older than 6 years should be shredded. No shortcuts on this, because scammers love to get their hands on confidential personal information. You can usually access bank and investment statements for 12 months online, but it may also be helpful to save any purchase and sales confirmations for tax purposes. To keep things tidy, create either a physical or digital folder called Tax Prep. That way you can easily locate everything next year. If you don't need the statements, shred them after 45 days. One exception, though: if you or a relative may be applying for Medicaid, many states require that you show 5 years worth of statements. Finally, there are some things you need to keep forever, including birth and death certificates, Social Security cards, marriage licenses, divorce decrees, military discharge papers, and estate documents. Hold on to records related to home improvements and major purchases until you dispose of the asset. If you maintain paper versions of any of these, make digital copies and store them in a fireproof safe. A little spring cleaning now can help keep your financial life in full bloom all year long. In New York, I'm CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger.
Their sting is described as feeling like liquid fire, and for some people it may be the last thing they feel at all. Now we're talking about ruthless killers you didn't even know could be in your garden, and they're annihilating their tiny rival architects that built America's underground world. Reporter Alex Flippin digs into the invasion of the Asian needle ant and how they have already spread to more than 20 states, mostly in the eastern U.S.
It packs a painful sting you will not forget. Even worse,
you won't know if you're allergic to it until you're stung.
working in the Georgia garden she loves, Susan Simon has been stung 3 times. And that third time could have been the last.
My family was here to help, thank goodness. I lost consciousness and they actually caught me as I was going down.
She was taken down by this, a tiny insect measuring just 0.2 of an inch long. It's called the Asian needle ant, a fast-spreading invader that has no business in a Georgia garden, much less any of the other 21 U.S. states where it's been reported, according to experts like James Vogt, an entomologist with the U.S. Forest Service.
Just the sheer extent to which these ants are able to invade forests and take over in needle ant infested areas.
There's one right there.
If you go out and pick up a piece of wood, the overwhelming possibility is it has Asian needle ants in it.
And that's the danger invasive species like the Asian needle ant pose. Native ants keep the ecosystem healthy. They break down organic matter, aerate the soil, distribute the seeds of native plants, and they keep other insect populations in check. But Dr. Vogt says there's literally a war being fought right under our feet. And when the Asian needle ant goes to battle, domestic ants disappear. A 10-year study conducted by the USDA Forest Service's Southern Research Station of areas infested by Asian needle ants in Athens, Georgia, showed 60% of native ants went locally extinct, meaning the home team is losing. So, what can you do? Dr. Vogt suggests anyone already sensitive to stings speak to their doctor about getting a prescription for an EpiPen to counteract severe allergic reactions. And Susan Simon's advice?
I don't know what we can do about it except just stay away.
Which is the best advice, even from the experts.
I leave them alone when they're outside. I think because of the health risk, people need to consider that carefully when they're considering whether they want to take action or not.
Better to be safe than stung.
For those who are dealing with these tiny invaders, the pest control company Orkin says you can deter them by sealing entry points and fixing leaks around the home, as well as storing food in airtight containers. Removing debris, leaf litter, and mulch from around the perimeter of your home will also help eliminate nesting sites. They sure sound like a nightmare, so here's to hoping they don't make their way to Alaska. And a new controversy is brewing in Hollywood over an announcement involving the late Val Kilmer. The actor's family says before he died, he was set to star in a historical epic called As Deep as the Grave, but he never got to shoot it. But now the family has agreed to let producers fake his voice and image with generative AI, and that's raising all kinds of questions. Jolene Kent reports.
You see, I'm both Bruce Wayne and Batman.
As one of Hollywood's most bankable stars and beloved actors of the 80s and 90s, Val Kilmer is now leading the charge into what could be a new age of filmmaking. This picture is the first posthumous image of Val Kilmer, created using generative AI, artificial intelligence technology that can generate new content by analyzing what's already out there. Kilmer, who died in April of 2025, is set to star in As Deep as the Grave, a film about a pair of archaeologists in America's Southwest. It's being called the first AI performance of its kind.
The Navy needs Maverick.
In 2022's Top Gun Maverick, filmmakers used AI to enhance Kilmer's voice as the actor was battling throat cancer. Kilmer's family says the portrayal in this new movie is okay with them and that he signed on to the film years before he died. Mercedes Kilmer, his daughter, in part says he always looked at emerging technologies with optimism as a tool to expand the possibilities of storytelling. This spirit is something that we are all honoring within this specific film.
When they talk about me.
Last September, SAG-AFTRA, the actors union, discouraged the use of AI-generated actor Tilly Norwood, saying then the union is opposed to the replacement of human performers by synthetics. SAG-AFTRA did not respond to our request for comment, but back in December, I did ask its president and actor, Sean Astin, whether he thinks there's a role for AI in filmmaking.
I think it's okay to look for opportunities to see filmmakers and companies who are trying to push the envelope. There's a difference between pushing the envelope and tearing it up.
Jolene Kent, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And with that, we're going to take our final short break of the Morning Edition Extra. When we come back, we'll have some very sweet stories, including some surprises for kids and some kids being surprised in a very wholesome way. We'll have some cool stories, including the new spinoceros, and we'll have some marriage advice from kids. So we'll hear those sweet stories when we return. Welcome back in. Two military fathers from Louisiana had a surprise for their kids at school after returning from a year-long deployment. Britt LaFaso has that story.
Are y'all ready? It started with 3 very large cardboard boxes and some very excited students at J. Wallace James Elementary School. What they didn't know was what was in those boxes until...
Get set, go!
2 military dads popped out.
These men have been gone for a year. They have not seen their dads for a year, so they are here to surprise them with their homecoming.
3 little boys' dads finally home.
They opened the presents. I did not expect that. I thought it was going to be like a little fidget toy. And what I thought was going to be in the boxes was like a bike.
I was going to say, that's much better than a bike, huh?
Yes.
All right. I don't know how to describe it. Jubilating, I guess, if that's a real word. I don't know. I wouldn't trade the smile on their face for anything in the world.
The dads were supposed to be home this weekend.
He brought his calendar that he had dates marked in his room to my wife, Rachel, and he had written on the top of it, "Dad's coming home the month of March," and he had marked on it the day he thought I was coming home.
The military men devised a plan together.
My youngest, Andrew, has been very adamant about wanting me to come check him out of school in uniform. So with that little idea sparked a conversation with the school saying that, hey, we'll be getting back in time. We should be able to make it, and then the school just went above and beyond.
It was kind of surprising. She was like, "Yeah, I got a great idea." And when she emailed it to me, I was like, "Oh, that's cool and sweet,
This was Rick Demeg's 4th deployment. He says it never gets easier leaving your family.
So being able to come home to your family, it's always a welcome treat to come back and know that, hey, we did a job well done. So if I could put a smile on their face by coming home and we go eat some crawfish and go ride some dirt bikes, then by all means, that's what we're going to do.
That was so sweet. And now more than 250 incarcerated people at a Colorado jail are getting the opportunity to connect with young people through an agriculture and art program. It's a collaboration between the El Paso County Sheriff's Office and the 4-H Club that helps participants build coping strategies and foster self-reflection. Michelle Reyes has more.
It's not every day you see this. Murals covering jail walls inspired by kids on the outside.
Probably one of the best days I've ever had in jail.
But this is more than art. It's about second chances and seeing life differently.
It meant a lot because I grew up in the country.
It starts with 4-H Students, a youth program that teaches kids about agriculture, animals, and leadership, using their heads, hands, health, and
heart.
10-year-old Carson is one of 7 youth members part of this project.
Me and my brothers are presenting market goats.
Right behind him is 17-year-old Mariah Hudson, who has been part of 4-H for 5 years.
We showed off what we know in agriculture and everything to the inmates.
Those lessons now reaching inside the El Paso County Jail. More than 250 inmates across 7 wards took part.
If they have something to say, why not give them the correct platform?
Each group given one topic to learn about: goats, rodeo and horsemanship, horses, and sheep.
I mean, the sheeps do zombies, like jump around when they're young. I never knew what zombies was until the little 9-year-old told me about it.
The program blends agriculture with mental health, helping build accountability.
I have bipolar depression. It actually took me out of my negative thoughts and took me out of this place. Even for a moment, it's bliss.
And purpose.
Working on this mural, it's something we had to ask for every day. They don't just open the door and really get to work.
And beyond the art, it's about creating connections between 2 groups who may have never crossed paths otherwise.
Maybe instead of giving a plethora of medication and other things that we tend to focus on, maybe our children are that inspiration.
Now those lessons left behind on these walls.
Don't be afraid to be different.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah, it's okay to be odd. Like the little sheep right here. You gotta take it one day at a time, just like agriculture.
And now the community can be part of that impact.
A 2nd grade teacher turning to some unexpected experts before her wedding, her students. Hallie Jackson has the story and what her students' advice was to her.
For 2nd grade teacher Clarissa Trevino, her most personal class assignment yet.
I love my students, absolutely love them. They're the funniest kids. I just wanted to have them involved with something, with the wedding.
When her boyfriend Omar proposed, Trevino immediately started thinking about how to include the class. So she turned to them for marriage tips.
The marriage advice I give my teacher is care for each other and love her.
To give her flowers. Get her Starbucks every day.
Not eating each other's snacks.
Oh, yeah.
That one's very important too.
Now, happily on their honeymoon, the couple says they've already started putting the advice to good use.
To take her on a date and go to a 5-star restaurant.
Yeah, like he's going places. He knows. And I did just that when we got to Vegas where we had our wedding. I went ahead and got the corner table at the Eiffel Tower.
Trevino posting the words of wisdom on TikTok, where it now has 500,000 views.
The marriage advice I give my teacher is to be kind and love each other.
You know, these are 7 and 8-year-olds talking about, you know, love is kind, you know, so it was really nice to kind of see how they thought.
You know,
Kids are amazing.
yeah.
Now to a story about hot dogs. Now, not the kind you eat. We're talking about the nation's most popular breeds of canines. And the American Kennel Club has released the list of the nation's most popular dog breeds. For the 4th consecutive year, the French Bulldog remains top of the heap, followed by Labrador Retrievers, Golden Retrievers, and German Shepherds. And running at the top 5 are Dachshunds, marking the first time wiener dogs have ranked that high in over 2 decades. Well, I'm a huge puppy person, so for me, all breeds. It's all breeds on top. All breeds are the hot dogs. A fossilized skull and jawbones found to have led to a new spinoceros, I believe is how you pronounce it, have led to a new spinoceros species being identified, the first in more than a century. The Spinoceros mirabilis lived some 95 million years ago, according to the newly identified fossils. And oh, excuse me, lost my place in my notes. And according to the newly identified fossils, the creature had a large bony crest atop its head, a long narrow snout for snaring fish, and legs long enough to hunt in shallow water. The lead author of the study said the new research points to Spinoceros, a semi-aquatic shoreline hunter with physical similarities to a wading bird. And with that, that wraps up the Morning Edition Extra for this Friday morning. Thank you so much for joining us and for starting off your day with Alaska's news source. We hope to see you again at noon for the latest in news, weather, and more. Have a good day.